My name is Jonathan Brooks. I'm 32, and last night at Sunday dinner I told my family something small, something harmless. At least, that's what they thought. I said I was being evicted and needed $3,000. Their reaction told me everything I needed to know. What they don't realize is that my lie wasn't the test, and what happens next will reveal a truth they are completely unprepared for. Hit like and subscribe before the real story begins. You're going to want to hear what happened next. The funny thing is, this whole mess didn't start at that dinner table. It really started 3 weeks earlier, in the driver's seat of my beat-up 2010 Corolla, parked behind the strip mall where I work. It was a Tuesday, one of those heavy, humid afternoons where the air inside the car feels like it's pressing on your skin. I had just finished my shift at the warehouse and was getting ready to go to my second job delivering food. My back hurt, my feet hurt, and my brain was just numb. I leaned the seat back a little, closed my eyes for a second, and pulled out my phone to mindlessly scroll before my next order came in. I wasn't expecting anything. I definitely wasn't expecting the notification at the top of my screen. It was from my banking app. For a second, I thought it was another overdraft alert. Instead, I saw a number I knew was coming someday, but still didn't feel real when it arrived. Incoming wire received. $1,084,327.19. I just stared at it. The number didn't punch me in the chest. There was no dramatic music playing in my head. My heart didn't start racing. It did the opposite. It went quiet. Completely quiet. I knew what it was. The sale. 2 years of late nights, weekends, and quiet work on a small software tool I'd built with a buddy on the side. Something I never mentioned to my family because they already called me delusional for believing I could do anything other than chase paychecks and be realistic. We'd signed the deal last month with a mid-sized tech company, a buyout for our code, our customer list, and a 2-year consulting contract. The papers said the money would hit within 30 days. That day was today. I locked my phone, leaned my head back on the headrest, and let out one slow, deep breath. The kind you let go when you've been holding yourself together with duct tape for years. Before I could even open my eyes again, my phone buzzed in my hand. A new text. From Mom. Of course. Jamal's car broke down. Send him $250 so he can get to work. He needs it today. I stared at that message longer than I had stared at the wire notice. $1 million in my account. 250 demanded like it was my duty, like always. I could see it so clearly all of a sudden. My older brother Jamal, 35, always between opportunities. My mother, who called him my poor boy, and called me the one who will figure it out. And me, Jonathan, the walking safety net. The one they text when the light bill is late, when the fridge is empty, when the car is on E. The one they never ever ask. Hey, how are you holding up? A kind of cold feeling slid over me then. Not anger exactly. Just a cold, sharp line of thought. I clicked on Mom's message and hovered my thumb over the keyboard. I could have sent the money in 2 seconds. I had done it so many times before when I didn't even have it. I could picture exactly how it would go. Jamal would say, "Good looking out, lil bro," and then disappear until the next emergency. Mom would say I was a good son, and nothing in my life would change, except my bank balance dropping while theirs stayed the same. Instead, I did something I had never done in my entire life. I deleted the message. I turned my key in the ignition. The engine coughed, shook, and finally started. I didn't drive to a fancy restaurant to celebrate. I didn't drive to a dealership. I opened my delivery app, accepted the next order, and drove to pick up someone else's dinner. My silence was my first decision. The next few days were strange. Outside, nothing looked different. I still woke up in my tiny one-bedroom apartment with the peeling paint and thin walls. I still clocked in at the warehouse. I still wore the same old sneakers with the worn-down soles. Paycheck Jonathan and Millionaire Jonathan looked exactly the same. The difference was inside my head. Instead of panic, there was space. Instead of that constant buzzing fear. What if the car breaks down? What if I get sick? What if rent goes up? There was a quiet, steady feeling. I'm okay now. I'm safe. Or at least, I could be, if I made the right moves. Then, on Friday, I came home and saw the envelope taped to my door. Bright red. Lease adjustment notice. I pulled it off slowly and opened it in the hallway. The new management company was raising my rent by $400 in 30 days. Before, this kind of letter would have sent my heart straight through the floor. I would have been doing math in my head, counting shifts, wondering what bill I could skip to make it work. This time, that fear didn't come, but something else did. A memory. I was back in my old room at Mom's house, 17 years old, sitting on the edge of my bed while she stood in the doorway, holding my savings passbook, the one I'd had since I was a kid. Every birthday, every Christmas, every time I found a way to make a little money cutting grass or stocking shelves, I'd put a piece of it in that account. By the time I was ready for college, there was a little over $4,000 in there. Not life-changing money, but to me, it was everything. My backup plan, my safety, my half of my future. Jonathan, Mom had said, with that voice she used when the decision was already made and my opinion was just background noise. You know your brother is a grown man now. He has a chance to get his business off the ground. She was talking about Jamal's barbershop that never was. Some big plan with a friend that sounded more like smoke than structure. I remember frowning. Okay, but what does that have to do with my savings? She sighed like I was being difficult. You're smart. You got that scholarship. Books, living, you'll figure it out. Jamal needs help now. This is an investment in the family. I remember my throat burning as I tried to explain. Mom, that money is for my dorm deposit. For a laptop. For food. I can't. She cut me off, snapping the book shut. You're a man, Jonathan. Men adjust. Men hustle. Your brother just needs a little boost. Don't be selfish. The next day, the account was empty. The barbershop plan died 6 months later. I never saw a dollar of that money again. I worked night shifts in the campus mailroom and weekends at a restaurant just to stay afloat. That moment, standing in the hallway with my rent increase notice, that old sting came back like it had just happened. I looked down at the paper. Then I looked at my phone, at the little icon for the bank app that now held 7 figures. This wasn't about whether I could pay a rent increase. I could buy the whole building now if I wanted. It was about something else. The pattern. The fact that in my family, I wasn't a son or a brother. I was a resource, a backup, a walking he'll figure it out. And they had no idea that for the first time in my life, I was in a position where I didn't have to accept that role. I could choose. That thought sat with me for a day, then another. By Sunday, I knew what I wanted and what I needed. I didn't need their money. I didn't need their approval. I needed the truth. The real truth. Not the one I kept hoping for, where deep down they cared and would show up when it mattered. The truth of how they act when they think I'm at my lowest. So I opened the family group chat. My thumb hovered over the keyboard for a long time. I could have told them the good news. I could have said, my app sold. I'm doing okay now. I want to help everyone. I could have played the hero. Maybe that's what they expect me to do. Instead, I started typing something else. Guys, I'm in trouble. My landlord is raising my rent, and I got behind. I have 48 hours to pay $3,000, or I'm getting evicted. I stared at the words. It was technically a lie. I wasn't broke. I wasn't about to be on the street. But the feeling behind it, that helpless, trapped fear, I knew that feeling too well. I'd lived in it for most of my adult life. I hit send. Then I laid my phone face down on the counter and just stood there in my quiet apartment, listening to my own breathing. This was the moment. Not for them. For me. A minute later, the phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. I flipped it over. Jamal had sent a laughing emoji. Then another. Bro again, he wrote. You gotta stop messing up. For real. My sister replied with, dang, that's rough, and a sad face. Nothing else. Mom typed for a long time. Her bubble appeared and disappeared 3 separate times. Finally, her message popped up. Jonathan, stop being dramatic. It's Sunday. We'll talk at dinner. Come eat, and don't make this night about your problems. No, are you okay? No, where are you going to sleep? No, we'll figure this out. Just don't make it about you. I sat down at my little table, staring at those messages. I waited 10 minutes. No one followed up. No one called. Then something inside me settled. Fine, I thought. You want me to handle my own business? You're about to watch me do exactly that. I picked up my keys. Sunday dinner had always been their stage, their ritual. This time, it was going to be mine. I drove to my mother's house the same way I always did on Sundays, but this time it felt different. I wasn't walking in as the quiet son who blended into the background. I wasn't the fixer, the helper, the one who gave more than he ever received. I was walking in as a man who finally knew the truth, a man carrying a lie that was about to show me exactly where I stood with the people who claimed to love me. Their driveway was already full. Jamal's loud old BMW parked crooked like it always was, my sister's Honda beside it, Mom's silver Camry sitting closest to the house like a trophy. I sat in my car for a moment with my hands resting on the steering wheel, breathing slow. Not because I was nervous, but because I knew what I was walking into. A test disguised as a simple dinner. A moment that would reveal everything. When I opened the door and stepped inside, the smell hit me right away. Fried chicken, mac and cheese, cornbread, my mom's recipes that always tasted better than anything else. The food always felt like home, even when the people didn't. My mother looked over her shoulder when she saw me. "You're late," she said. Not unkind. Not warm either. Just factual. "Wash your hands. Dinner's ready." No hug. No smile. No concern. Just instructions, like always. Inside the dining room, Jamal was leaned back in his chair, already halfway through his plate. He looked up with a smirk he'd been waiting to use. "Look who decided to show up. Man, you look stressed. That eviction thing got you sweating already?" My sister snorted into her drink, trying to hide her grin. I ignored them. Not because their words didn't sting, they always did, but because tonight wasn't about reacting. It was about observing, studying, watching them show me who they really were. We sat down, Mom said a quick rushed blessing, and plates started moving. Fork scraping. The TV blaring from the living room. I waited for someone to bring up what I'd told them earlier. Nobody did. So finally, I asked quietly, "Mom, did you get my message? About the eviction?" She didn't even look up. "Jonathan, you always exaggerate. Nothing is that serious. You'll figure it out." "Mom, I'm telling you, eat," she snapped. "Don't ruin dinner." Ruin dinner. That was her concern. I looked at Jamal next, but he didn't even meet my eyes. He just kept eating like my words were background noise. So I tried again, softer. "I really am about to be kicked out." My sister sighed dramatically. "Jonathan, everyone has problems. You're not the only one struggling. You're 32. Handle your life like an adult." A tight, cold knot formed in my chest. "I'm just asking for a little help. Only 3,000. Jamal cut me off, laughing with food still in his mouth. "Bro, if you can't get 3 grand together, that's on you. Hustle. Grind. Do what the rest of us do." I stared at him, because this was the same man who hadn't worked more than 6 straight months in his entire life. He held out his hands like he was some wise teacher. "Look, I love you, but I'm not dipping into my savings because you didn't plan." His savings came from Mom. From me. From anyone who let him take what he wanted. Mom finally glanced up from her plate. "Jonathan, you've always landed on your feet. God blessed you with sense. I shouldn't have to rescue you every time something goes wrong. Every time. Like I was the burden of the family. Like I wasn't the one who had quietly lent her money for bills. Like I wasn't the one who had helped Jamal pay off debt he never admitted to the rest of them." I felt something inside me shift. A small, quiet break. Not anger. Just clarity. Dinner went on like I had never said a word. They talked about their week, laughed about some show they all watched, planned a trip Jamal couldn't afford but was apparently taking anyway. Not once did anyone turn to me and ask where I was sleeping that night. Not once did someone say, "Are you okay?" When the plates were empty and Mom started clearing the table, I stood and grabbed my jacket. "You leaving already?" she asked from the sink. "Yeah." "Well, thanks for coming," she said, like that counted as love. Jamal yelled from the couch. "Good luck with that eviction, bro." My sister laughed. I stepped outside and let the door close behind me. Only then, standing alone under the dim yellow porch light, did my face change. No polite smile. No pretending everything was fine. Just the truth settling in my chest like a stone. I walked to my car and opened the door. I sat inside for a long moment, the night quiet around me. Then I whispered, "This wasn't the test." Because it wasn't. Their reactions told me everything I needed to know, but the real test, the one they were going to fail spectacularly, was still ahead. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of what came next. I was ready for it. I didn't drive home right away. I just sat there, the engine off, staring through the windshield at the quiet street. A part of me hoped, just for 1 second, that the front door would open, that someone, anyone, would call out my name. Maybe my mom would step onto the porch, wrap herself in her sweater, and say, "Jonathan, wait. Let's talk." Maybe my sister would come running out, saying she didn't mean it. Maybe Jamal would jog over, slap my shoulder, and say he was just playing. But the porch stayed dark. The door stayed shut. The house stayed loud, just not for me. I breathed in once. Slow. Heavy. The kind of breath that marks the end of something. I pulled my phone out, stared at the screen, and opened my banking app, the one no one in my family knew existed. The balance glowed quietly at me. $1,083,442. 17. Money didn't fix loneliness. It didn't fix betrayal. but it did give me options. It gave me clarity. And right now, clarity was worth more than anything. I put the phone down, started the car, and let the old engine rumble awake. I didn't know where I was going until I was already halfway across town. My hands drove on their own, muscle memory guiding me down familiar streets lit by flickering lamps and half-empty parking lots. Before I realized it, I was pulling into a quiet neighborhood on the west side. The houses were old, worn, but clean. Kids' bikes on porches. Christmas lights still up, even though it was March. And at the end of the block sat a small brick building with peeling white paint, the Harmony Senior Homes. I probably should have felt embarrassed walking in there at 9 at night, looking defeated and tired, but instead I felt something else. Relief. Safety. Comfort. I walked up the creaky stairwell, 3 flights, no elevator, to apartment 3C. I knocked gently. After a moment, the door opened, and an older woman peeked out. She had silver hair tied back in a bun, warm brown eyes behind thick glasses, and a house robe wrapped around her like a soft blanket. "Jonathan," she said, her voice surprised but soft. "Child, what are you doing here at this hour?" I swallowed. "Hey, Miss Evelyn. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bother you. She didn't even let me finish. She stepped aside, opened the door wide, and motioned me in. "You don't have to explain anything to me. Come on, sit down." Her apartment was tiny but warm, the kind of place that felt like it had been hugged for years. A little couch with a knitted blanket draped over the back. A small table covered in crossword puzzles and a half-finished cup of tea. The air smelled like cinnamon and old books. I sat down on the couch, and for a second, I thought I could hold myself together. But Miss Evelyn had known me since I was 10 years old. She had a way of seeing through everything. "You look like you're carrying the world on your back," she said, settling into her chair. I stared at my hands. I told my family I needed help. $3,000. "And?" she asked gently. "They told me to figure it out." She didn't gasp. She didn't make some big dramatic face. She just nodded slowly like she'd already known the answer. "You don't deserve that," she said. I let out a small laugh, but it wasn't funny. Not really. Maybe I do. Maybe I set myself up for disappointment. "No," she said simply. "Don't do that. Hurt people will try to convince you their neglect is your fault. It isn't." I felt something in my chest soften. Just a little. "I don't know what to do, Miss Evelyn," I admitted. "I feel stupid. And small. And alone." She leaned forward, resting her hands on her knees. "You are not small. You're just surrounded by people who refuse to see your size." I blinked fast, trying not to let the sting in my eyes turn into tears. "I didn't come here to dump all this on you," I said. "I just didn't know where else to go." She smiled. A small, warm smile that felt like sunlight. "Jonathan, child, my door has been open to you since you were knee-high. You don't need a reason. You just come." Silence settled between us. The soft kind. The healing kind. "You hungry?" she asked. I shook my head. "You lying?" "Maybe." She stood up without another word and went to the tiny kitchen. I watched as she warmed up a bowl of leftover stew, humming quietly. The hum was familiar, comforting. It reminded me of being 10 years old at Big Mama's house. It reminded me of sitting at a table where people actually listened. When she placed the warm bowl in my hands and sat across from me again, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, safe. Truly safe. And that safety did something to me. It didn't make me softer. It made me sharper. It reminded me what real care looked like, what real family felt like. It made everything that had happened earlier snap into focus. "Miss Evelyn," I said quietly. "Yes, baby. I think I'm done letting people take from me." She nodded once, slowly. "Good." I held the bowl a little tighter. "And I think I know exactly what I'm going to do next." She smiled again, small and knowing. "Then go do it. Go handle your business." I nodded, feeling a steadiness return to my chest, a strength I thought I'd lost. I set the empty bowl down, thanked her, hugged her, and stepped back into the cool night air. My breath came out in a long cloud. This time, it wasn't from pain. It was clarity, control, purpose. I walked to my car with a single thought settling firmly in my mind. They think they failed a test. But the truth is, the real test hasn't even started yet. When I got back into my car, I didn't start it right away. I just sat there under the dim streetlight, hands resting on the wheel, letting Miss Evelyn's words settle into me. "Go handle your business." Nobody in my own family had ever said something like that to me with love. They only said it with exhaustion, annoyance, or judgment. She said it with belief. And belief has a way of changing everything. I finally turned the key and drove home, but my apartment didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a place I was passing through on my way to something bigger, something I should have had a long time ago if I hadn't been carrying everyone else on my back. I sat on the edge of my bed and opened the Notes app on my phone. I typed 5 words. What is my next move? The answer didn't come instantly, but the feeling did. It was the same feeling I had 3 years ago when I opened a separate account my family didn't know about. The same feeling I had when I started studying real estate law online. The same feeling I had when I decided to save every spare dollar from every job instead of handing it out to people who saw me as their personal emergency fund. That feeling was the beginning of a plan. I clicked into my contacts and scrolled until I reached the name I'd added months ago. Mr. Harris, attorney. He wasn't some billboard lawyer or someone offering free consultations. He was a quiet, serious real estate attorney in Midtown who had helped me set up an LLC last year when I thought I was going to buy my first rental property. I hadn't moved forward yet. Life got in the way. Family got in the way. But now, I tapped the call button. It rang twice before I heard his calm, even voice. This is Harris. Hi, Mr. Harris. It's Jonathan Brooks. Jonathan, he said, recognizing my name. Everything all right? Not really, I said. I need help. And I need it fast. Tell me. I took a breath and told him everything. The fake eviction story. The Sunday dinner. My mother's dismissal. My brother's laughter. All of it. I told him about the burn I felt sitting in that living room, realizing every person at that table would watch me drown as long as it didn't inconvenience them. And as I talked, I told him the part no one else knew, that I had over $1 million and that money wasn't the problem. People were. Jonathan, he said slowly. What do you want to do? There was a long pause. Then my voice came out steady and low. I want to protect what's mine. And I want to put something in place so they can never touch it. We can do that, he said. In fact, we can do better. We talked for nearly an hour. And with every detail he explained, every option he laid out, every strategy he suggested, something inside me kept shifting from hurt to clarity, from clarity to power. By the time we hung up, the entire direction of my life had changed. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was planning. I didn't sleep much that night. I lay awake thinking about every moment in my life where I'd been the family helper, the fixer, the giver. I thought about birthdays where I showed up with gifts, while everyone else showed up with excuses. I thought about the times I loaned money I never got back. The times I took care of my sister's kids while she partied for self-care. The times I helped my brother avoid overdraft fees because he had a tough month. The times I offered to pay for groceries, utilities, repairs, medical bills, because I believe that's just what family does. But the truth hit me like a slow, heavy weight settling on my chest. I had been raised to think loyalty meant sacrifice. They had been raised to think my sacrifice was their right. That night, everything inside me shifted. The next morning, I woke up almost unnaturally calm. My phone was silent. No missed calls. No texts. Of course, they only reached out when they needed something. I moved through my morning like I was preparing for something big. I showered, shaved, put on clean clothes. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw someone I hadn't seen in a long time, a man with a spine. At 10 sharp, I drove into Midtown toward the tall glass office building where Mr. Harris worked. The lobby alone looked like it cost my entire year's rent. A receptionist greeted me with a smile and led me to a conference room. Mr. Harris walked in a few minutes later wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my old car. He sat down, pulled out a sleek folder, and slid it toward me. Everything is in motion, he said. But before we go any further, I have one question. What is it? Are you prepared, he said carefully, for how your family is going to react when they realize they can't use you anymore? I didn't hesitate. Yes. He nodded once. Then let's get started. What he showed me in that folder made my chest tighten, not with fear, but with a deep, satisfying sense of justice. My entire financial life was now protected, locked down, legally untouchable. My family wouldn't just be cut off from my money. They would be cut off from the illusion that I needed them or owed them anything. As we wrapped up, Mr. Harris looked at me and said, "This next part, they won't see it coming." Neither would I, because as I walked out of that glass building and stepped into the sunlight, my phone buzzed with a message from my mother. It said, "Jonathan, we need to talk. Call me immediately." I froze, because that was the first time in my entire life she had ever written those words to me. And I already knew. She wasn't reaching out because she cared. She was reaching out because someone had told her something she didn't want to hear. The test was over, and the real fallout was about to begin. I barely slept that night. I didn't cry, and I didn't get angry. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every voice in my head. The laughter at the dinner table, the shrug from my mother, the way they waved me away like I was some stray dog scratching at the door. But the one voice I heard the longest was Miss Evelyn's, her words echoing with more weight than anything I'd heard in years. Family is the one that pulls you up, not the one that pushes you down. When morning finally came, I didn't feel tired. I felt clear, crystal clear. Their test was over. Mine was just beginning. I dressed slow, calm, deliberate. Gray slacks, a clean dark shirt, fresh shave. Not because I wanted to look good, but because I wanted to feel awake. Awake for the next move. I checked my bank app, my secret account, and the numbers glowed back at me with quiet certainty. $1,234,917. 12. Money wasn't the point. It was the leverage, the freedom, the proof that everything they thought I was wrong. Around 10, I headed out, but instead of driving toward the office or toward my empty apartment, I drove toward the one place that still felt honest, Miss Evelyn's neighborhood. I didn't knock on her door. I just parked outside and sat there for a moment, watching the building and thinking about the woman inside who had handed me the last of her rent money without blinking. The only person who had reached for me when everyone else stepped back. I knew exactly what I had to do next. I pulled out my phone and opened my messages. Jamal's text from last night was still there. Sis, about that house deal, we should talk tomorrow. 10 a.m.? There was no hope you're okay. No, how did last night go? Not even a fake apology. Just business. Business he thought he controlled. I typed back 2 words. I'll be there. Now, here's the thing. Jamal thought he was smart, but Jamal didn't know contracts. Jamal didn't know law. Jamal didn't know I spent the last 3 years moonlighting online for a real estate attorney reviewing documents just like the ones he planned to shove in front of me. I already knew Big Mama's house wasn't worth $150,000 like he claimed. I knew it wasn't even close. I ran comps last night. Most recent sale on the block, $812,000. A renovated home, 3 lots over, $925,000. A teardown across the street, $510,000 cash. And Big Mama's land, her actual land, was sitting in a development zone the city had quietly approved for expansion next year. My third-party value estimate? Somewhere between $700,000 and $900,000. And my share alone was worth around $250,000 minimum. So when he tried to dangle that fake $20,000 blessing in my face like he was doing me a favor, I almost laughed. Almost. But I kept the mask on. Because sometimes you need stupid people to think you're stupid too. It keeps them predictable. At 9:45, I walked into the little strip mall where we were supposed to meet. The place looked like the kind of office you go to when you're trying to hide something. A notary window with flickering fluorescent lights. Carpet that smelled like old coffee and broken dreams. A sign taped to the door that read, "Document Services, no questions asked." Of course Jamal picked this place. He and Ashley were already sitting inside. Jamal was wearing a cheap suit that didn't fit, and Ashley was chewing gum loud enough to be a fire alarm. My mother wasn't there yet, which didn't surprise me. She always showed up last, and acted like she was first. "About time," Jamal said, standing up like he was some kind of CEO. "You ready to be responsible today? We got everything set up to get this done." Ashley smirked, looking me up and down like I was something. She stepped around on the sidewalk. "Hope you brought your ID, sweetie," she said. "Would hate for you to slow us down again." She loved that. The slow us down line. Loved talking down to me. Loved the idea that she and Jamal were the smart ones. I stepped up to the table where a stack of documents was waiting. Jamal grabbed a pen and shoved it into my hand. "Just 3 signatures," he said, tapping the papers. "Right here, here, and here. We get the house sold. You walk out with 20 grand cash today." 20 grand. For something worth 10 times that. "Can I read it first?" I asked, letting my voice shake just a little. His eyes rolled so hard I thought they'd fall out of his head. "Jonathan, it's boilerplate. Standard. You wouldn't even understand half of it." Ashley leaned in. "Just sign it. You need the money. Don't make this difficult." And that was it. The moment everything clicked for me. The moment the pity I used to feel for them, the excuses I used to make for their behavior, just evaporated. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a problem to use, fix, or ignore. And they thought this was the end of the story. But they didn't know they were standing at the beginning of mine. I let my hand tremble again, just for show, and reached for the top of the document. Okay, I whispered. Just walk me through it. Jamal leaned over the stack like a proud salesman, flipping pages quickly past the parts he didn't want me seeing, talking fast, pointing at signature lines like he was guiding a toddler. But while he was rushing me forward, my eyes were already reading the bold title at the top of the page. Disclaimer of interest and inheritance. Not a sale, not a transfer, not even a buyout. A full surrender. Permanent. Binding. No compensation guaranteed. The $20,000 was not a payment. It wasn't even mentioned. It was a separate document stapled behind it. A loan agreement, meaning they were giving me nothing, and I'd owe them everything. They weren't buying my share. They were tricking me into giving it up. That was when I felt it. The shift. The moment the mask snapped into place. Not mine, theirs. I looked up slowly, and I didn't tremble this time. I held the papers in my hands like they were made of thin glass. I kept my face small, confused, overwhelmed, the exact expression they expected from me. But inside, everything was sharp, focused, cold. I looked at Jamal, at Ashley, at the notary who barely looked awake, and I realized none of them saw me as anything more than an obstacle. They weren't nervous. They weren't cautious. They were impatient, like I was holding up their afternoon plans. Jamal tapped the paper again. Bro, he said, shaking his head, it's simple. Sign the papers, take the money, and move on with your life. You don't need this stress. Ashley let out a long sigh. Jonathan, nobody's trying to hurt you. You have no idea how much work Jamal did to set this up. We're doing you a favor. A favor? The word nearly made me laugh. But instead, I tilted my head like her words hit me in the chest. I'm just nervous, I whispered. It's a big step. She rolled her eyes. The only big step here is you learning to stop messing up your own life. Jamal smirked at that, and the notary, this sweaty guy with a crooked tie, finally looked up long enough to say, You ready or not? I stared down at the signature lines. My name printed there in bold type. It should have made me angry, but what I felt instead was something cleaner. Purpose. Calm. I forced my hand to shake a little. The old Jonathan. The one they counted on. Then, right as I went to sign, I accidentally dropped the pen. It hit the floor with a soft plastic clatter. Sorry, I muttered, ducking under the table. And under that table, hidden from their eyes, I clicked record on my phone with my thumb. The red timer started counting immediately. 00:01, 00:02, 00:03. The microphone pointed straight toward every word coming out of their greedy mouths. I picked the pen back up and stood again, letting my face go pale, letting my breath shake like I was on the verge of tears. Okay, I said softly. I just want to make sure I understand. Ashley groaned loudly. Jonathan, it's not that complicated. So, this is the paper, I said slowly. That gives me $20,000 for my part of Big Mama's house. Ashley snapped. Yes, that is exactly what it is. God, you are so, just sign it so we can go. Her voice hit the recorder perfectly. Every word crisp. Every lie sharpened. Jamal leaned in. We're giving you a chance to get back on your feet. Bro, don't overthink it. Be smart. They were handing me the evidence themselves. On a silver platter. I let my eyes water. You're right, I whispered. You're both right. I'm sorry. I'm just overwhelmed. Ashley smiled. A slow, satisfied smile. She thought she won. I picked up the pen. My hand hovered over the line. And then, smooth as breathing, I signed it. A clean, bold signature on a completely illegal document. Jamal practically snatched the papers before the ink dried. Great. Finally. Told you he'd get it. Ashley held out her hand, and he slapped the stack into her palm like they'd closed a business deal. You got the cash? She asked him. He nodded and reached into his jacket pocket. Right here. He pulled out a white envelope, stuffed full, slapped it down on the table, and shoved it across to me. 20,000, he said proudly. Cash. Count it if you want. I didn't touch it. I didn't even glance at it. I just stared at him with a soft, broken smile. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you both so much. Ashley smirked. You'll be okay now. Just try not to call us every time something happens. The notary stamped the pages without a word, like he'd done this kind of thing before. Jamal clapped his hands once. All right, he said, standing. We're done here. They didn't know they were done in a very different way. He grabbed Ashley's hand and walked toward the door. Neither of them looked back at me. Not once. The door swung shut behind them. And just like that, everything shifted. My shaking hands went still. The fear dropped from my expression like a mask hitting the floor. And in its place was the truth. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and stopped the recording at 14 minutes and 22 seconds. Every lie, every push, every false promise, every coercion, every piece of fraud captured in HD audio. I slipped the phone into my jacket and picked up the white envelope of cash. Light, almost pathetic. Nothing compared to what they thought they stole from me. But it wasn't money I wanted. It was proof. And now I had it. I stepped outside into the bright afternoon sun. It felt warm, clean, the world suddenly sharper. I took a deep breath. And then I turned left, away from the strip mall. Away from Jamal and Ashley and everything they thought they controlled. I got into my car, closed the door, started the engine. Then, with a calm I'd never felt before, I opened my contacts and tapped the one name that mattered, Mr. Washington. He answered on the second ring. Jonathan, he said. You ready? I looked at the envelope in my lap. The recording saved on my phone. The plan that was finally, perfectly in motion. Yes, I said quietly. It's time. The next morning, I wasn't in a strip mall with buzzing fluorescent lights and stained plastic chairs. I was riding an elevator up 40 floors in a glass tower in the rich part of town, watching the city fall away beneath me. My reflection in the mirrored walls didn't look like the broke, irresponsible Jonathan they thought they were dealing with. No wrinkled work polo, no tired eyes. I wore a simple dark navy suit, a clean white shirt, and the kind of calm you only get when you finally stop begging and start planning. The elevator doors opened onto thick carpet and quiet. No blasting TVs, no yelling, no chaos. Just soft light, expensive art, and the low murmur of people who made their living solving other people's problems. The glass door at the end of the hall read, Washington and Cole, attorneys at law. The receptionist looked up and smiled. Good morning. Do you have an appointment? Yes, I said. Jonathan Brooks. 10 o'clock with Mr. Washington. Her smile turned warmer, more professional. Of course, Mr. Brooks. He's expecting you. Please, have a seat. I'll let him know you're here. I didn't sit. I barely had time. His office door opened less than a minute later. Hakeem Washington was exactly like he'd sounded over the phone. Calm, composed, sharp, late 40s, charcoal suit, small gold watch that didn't need to flash to say it was expensive. Jonathan, he said, walking toward me, hand outstretched. Come on in. Let's see what your family's been up to. His office looked like money in order. Mahogany desk, floor-to-ceiling windows, shelves lined with law books and framed degrees. The city lay spread beneath us like a map. I sat across from him and put my phone on the desk, screen facing up. They took the bait, I said. Just like you predicted. Good, he replied, folding his hands. Tell me what happened. Step by step. I told him about the fake eviction, the calls, the strip mall. About the stack of papers. About the notary who didn't care. About the way Ashley and Jamal talked to me like I was a child who couldn't be trusted with crayons. When I got to the part about the documents, I slid the stack across his desk. I accidentally walked out with the originals, I said quietly. The notary was too focused on his coffee and his phone to notice. He put on a pair of thin gold-rimmed reading glasses and started flipping through the pages. His face stayed neutral at first, then his brows lifted. Disclaimer of interest, he muttered. Renounces and refuses to accept any and all rights, title, and interest in the estate. He turned another page. Then he found the loan agreement. He read it once. Then a second time, slower. A low whistle slipped out of him before he caught it. They tried to make you give up your entire 1/3 for free, he said, tapping the main document. And then make you owe them $20,000 at 20% interest on top of that. He sat back in his chair and took off his glasses. Your family is bold. And unbelievably stupid. I felt a small, humorless smile twitch at the corner of my mouth. I told you they'd go for it, I said. They think I'm dumb. They think I don't read. They think I don't know what I'm signing. They think wrong, he said. This isn't just a bad deal. This is fraud. Coercion. Predatory as hell. A DA would love this. Especially with witnesses. I leaned forward. About that part, I said, unlocking my phone with my thumb. I opened the voice memos app and slid the phone toward him. Press play. He did. The small speaker filled the quiet office with Ashley's voice. Sharp. Impatient. Certain the universe worked for her. Yes, Jonathan, That is exactly what it is. You sign the damn paper, we give you the 20 grand for the house. Now sign it. We have lunch reservations in Buckhead. The recording ended, and the silence afterward felt different. Heavy. Loaded. Washington's eyes were on my phone, but his mind was already 10 steps ahead. How long, he asked. 14 minutes, 22 seconds, I said. They explained the deal to you as a purchase agreement, he said slowly, while shoving a disclaimer and a loan under your nose. They pressured you, mocked you, rushed you, and promised you something they never legally gave you in return. He looked up at me now, and this time there was something else in his gaze. Respect. Jonathan, he said, this is textbook. If we handed this to the DA's office, they'd think it was a training exercise. I nodded. So what do? We don't rush, he said. We build. We don't just hit them with this. We put their greed on full display. We give them a chance to show who they really are in a room they don't control. He tapped his desk once, lightly. We invite them here. I raised a brow. You think they'll come? His mouth curved in a small, knowing smile. You threatened their money, didn't you? I thought of the house. Of Vine City. Of rising property values and developers circling like vultures. Yeah, I said quietly. I did. They'll come, he said. They won't be able to stay away. We sat there in the quiet for a moment, the plan settling between us. Then he nodded toward my phone. Before we send out invitations, he said, you said there were a few calls you wanted to make. I took a breath. Yeah, I said. 3. My conference phone is yours, he said, pushing the sleek black speaker toward me. Use whatever you need. I'll be right here. I didn't start with my mother, or my brother, or Ashley. I started with the one person who deserved to hear my real voice. I picked up my own phone and scrolled to a name that had nothing to do with money or betrayal. Ms. Evelyn. My thumb hovered over the call button for a second. Then I tapped. The line rang once. Twice. Hello? Her voice sounded warm, a little tired. Familiar. Hey, Ms. Evelyn, I said, and for the first time that morning, my tone softened. It's Jonathan. Jonathan, baby, she said immediately. You okay? You sound different. I'm okay, I said. Better than okay. I promise. I'm safe. I hesitated, then asked, can I ask you something strange? Strange how? She replied, a little laugh in her voice. That building you're in, I said. Harmony Senior Lofts. Do you like it? She snorted. Like it? Lord, no. But it's a roof. The elevator's been broken so long I think they forgot it exists, and those boys down the hall play music like they're trying to raise the dead. But it's what I can afford. And your lease? I asked. When's it up? End of the month, she said. They already sent me the renewal. Trying to raise my rent by $50 like I'm made of gold. Don't sign it, I said quietly. She went silent for a second. What? Please, I said. Don't sign it. Not yet. Just trust me a little longer. 1 week. Jonathan, what are you up to? She asked, but there was no anger in it. Just concern. Curiosity. Something good, I said. For you this time, not for them. Just trust me. There was a long pause. Then she sighed. Baby, I've trusted you since you were a boy sitting on my couch doing homework with your shoes off. I'll give you a week. But don't play with my housing, you hear me? My heart can't take it. I won't, I said, feeling my throat tighten, but from something good this time. I love you, Ms. Evelyn. I love you too, child, she replied softly. Go do whatever you're doing. Just remember who you are while you do it. I hung up and set the phone down. Washington watched me for a second, then nodded like something made sense now. Good woman, he said. Very, I replied. Now what, he asked. Now, I said, picking up the office phone this time. We start building what comes after. I dialed a number from a business card we'd pulled out the day we talked about investments. A man named Harrison, who managed a fund that backed Black-owned startups. The kind of place that knew what to do with serious money. Harrison speaking. A polished voice answered after I got routed through his assistant. Mr. Harrison, I said, letting the warmth drain from my tone and replacing it with something clean, professional. This is Jonathan Brooks, principal of the Brooks Alpha Foundation. We spoke briefly with your associate last week. There was a pause, then a shift. More attention in his voice now. Yes, of course. Mr. Brooks, how can we help you today? I looked out at the city, at the streets where I'd driven grocery orders and counted coins at gas stations. I've reviewed your materials, I said. I'm ready to move forward with an initial position in your fund for Black women-owned startups. Another pause. That's wonderful to hear, he said. What kind of number were you thinking? I met Washington's eyes. He was watching me carefully. I didn't look away. Let's start with 5 million, I said. I heard the breath catch on the other end of the line. 5 million. Yes, I said. 5. My attorney, Mr. Washington, will send wiring instructions this afternoon. Of course, Harrison said quickly. We're honored to have you on board. We'll prioritize everything on our end. I'm sure you will, I said calmly. Talk soon. I hung up, and the office felt different again. Bigger, like the air had more space in it. Washington let out a low, amused sound. 5 million, he repeated. You don't ease into things, do you? I shrugged. I've spent my whole life tiptoeing around other people's comfort, I said quietly. I'm done with that. He nodded once, like he understood something deeper than the numbers. All right, he said. One more call. Yeah, I said. The fun one. I picked up my own phone again. This time, as it rang, I let my shoulders slump. I softened my voice. I pulled the scared, shaking version of myself back on, like an old, worn-out jacket. My mother picked up on the fourth ring. Jonathan, she said, already annoyed. What now? Your brother told me you got your money and signed the papers. So what is it this time? I took a breath and let it hitch. Mom, I said, making my voice thin and tight. I think I made a mistake. Silence. Then a sharp, irritated, what are you talking about? The papers, I said, letting real anger twist into fake fear. I read the last page, the handwritten one. It says the 20,000 is a loan, that I have to pay Jamal back. With interest. I thought it was for my share of the house. I thought I was selling it. I let a small sob break out of my throat. It wasn't hard. I just pulled up every time she'd called me dramatic when I was telling the truth. I think Jamal and Ashley tricked me. On the other end, she sighed. Long, heavy, annoyed. Lord, you are so stupid sometimes, she muttered. Why do you sign things you don't understand? That sentence burned going in, but it played exactly into what I needed next. I called a lawyer, I said, talking fast now like I was scared. At a free legal clinic. He said it sounds like fraud. He said the papers might not be legal. Mom, he said he could sue Jamal. He said I shouldn't leave Big Mama's house, that I should move in and not let anybody sell it until this is fixed. I let those words hang there on purpose. Not I'm hurt. Not I'm scared. Just, I might block your payday. I heard her cover the phone with her hand and shout. Jamal, get in here. Your brother is about to mess everything up. Muffled voices. Jamal's loud, angry tone. Ashley's sharper one cutting in. After a few seconds, Mom came back on the line. Where, she snapped, is this lawyer? I looked at Washington, and he gave me the slightest nod. Buckhead Tower, I said softly. 40th floor. 10 o'clock tomorrow. He said if we don't sort this out, he's going to sue. He said Jamal could get in real trouble. I shut my mouth and let the silence do the work. I could almost hear the math happening in her head. The house value, the investor friend, the taxes, the big flip in their minds. Fine, she spat finally. We'll be there. And Jonathan? Yeah, Mom. Don't you do anything stupid before then. Do you hear me? I let my voice go small again. Yes, ma'am, I whispered. She hung up. I lowered the phone and set it gently on Washington's desk. My hand didn't shake. Not even a little. They'll come, I said. All of them. Washington leaned back in his chair, satisfaction in his eyes. Oh, I have no doubt, he said. They think they're walking into a room with a frightened boy and his cheap lawyer. I stood, smoothing my suit jacket, looking out at the city again. They're walking into a room with the man they made, I said quietly, and a lawyer they can't push around. Then it's settled, he said, rising to his feet. The stage is set. I watched the traffic moving far below, tiny and distant, like all the old versions of me I'd finally left behind. Now, I said, let's see what they do when the lights come up. When 10 o'clock hit the next morning, that conference room on the 40th floor felt like another world. The air was quiet and heavy, the kind of quiet that comes with money. Thick carpets, polished wood, and a view so wide it made the whole city look small. I sat on one side of the long mahogany table with Mr. Washington and his associates beside me, their folders neatly stacked, their expressions calm and unreadable. I didn't say a word. I just sat still, hands folded, watching the door. They showed up exactly when I expected them to, loud, annoyed, and already complaining before the door even closed. My mother walked in first, stiff and irritated in her church suit, clutching her purse like it was holding the last bit of her dignity. Jamal followed, trying to look confident in a cheap suit that didn't fit. Ashley walked in behind them in a loud leopard print dress like she thought she was walking into a brunch, not a legal meeting. They looked around the room, at the walls of glass and the skyline behind me, and I saw it, right there in their eyes. Shock, confusion, then annoyance. They couldn't hide it. They sat down across from me like they owned the place. My mother didn't even try for politeness. She tapped her manicured nails on the table, an impatient little rhythm that echoed the way she'd always spoken to me, like everything I said was nonsense. All right, Jonathan, she snapped. Explain this mess. Your brother told you everything was taken care of. You signed the papers. Why are we here wasting our time? Ashley scoffed loudly and crossed her arms. Seriously, Jonathan, if this is some weird panic attack or some emotional meltdown, we're not staying long. We have actual things to do today. Jamal didn't say anything at first. He leaned back in his chair, trying to look relaxed, but his leg was bouncing under the table. I didn't look at them. I didn't even react. I let the weight of the room do the work. Mr. Washington leaned forward, folding his hands neatly on the table. Good morning, he said, his voice slow, even. We appreciate you all coming. My mother rolled her eyes. Let's hurry this up. Washington nodded once. We're here because of the documents Jonathan was given yesterday. Jamal sat up straighter, suddenly defensive. He signed them. That's it. End of story. Ashley snapped her fingers toward the stack in her bag. Do you want to see them? Because we brought them. Everything is legal. Legal, Washington repeated. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even look irritated. He just let the words sit there long enough for all of them to feel it. Then he pressed a button on the speaker in the center of the table. A small click. Then Ashley's voice filled the room, tone sharp, impatient, dripping with condescension. Yes, Jonathan, that is exactly what it is. You signed the damn paper. We give you the 20 grand for the house. Now sign it. We have lunch reservations in Buckhead. The recording ended. Silence dropped over the room like a curtain. Ashley froze. Jamal went pale. My mother turned slowly toward her son, her mouth slightly open, eyes wide with disbelief. Jamal, she breathed. He swallowed. Mom, she asked. She begged us. You saw her. She was crying. Washington slid the fraudulent contract across the table. He didn't touch it again. This, he said calmly, is a disclaimer of interest. It gives up Jonathan's full inheritance rights. Permanently. Irrevocably. For nothing. He tapped the handwritten paper. And this is a loan agreement. $20,000 that Jonathan must repay with interest. He looked up at them. Combined, we have fraud, coercion, deception, and attempted theft. All caught on audio. My mother's face crumpled. She looked like she was trying to breathe underwater. Jamal, you told me. Mom, she was desperate. Jamal said, panicking, his voice cracking. We were helping. You weren't helping anyone, I said finally. My voice cut through their noise like a blade. Cold. Steady. Completely unlike the boy they were used to. You were stealing from me. From your own family. Ashley slammed her hands on the table. Oh, shut up, Jonathan. You needed money. We were giving you money. You're acting like you're some kind of victim. She threw her hair back. You aren't even worth stealing from. You're broke. You have nothing. You're lucky we even bothered. Washington interrupted, his tone polite but deadly. Lucky. He opened a black leather folder and pulled out a single sheet. A certified bank statement. He slid it across the table toward my mother. This, he said, is Jonathan's current account balance. She lifted the paper with shaking hands. Her eyes scanned it once, then again, then her breath caught hard in her throat. 1 million. Jonathan, how? Ashley ripped the paper out of her hands. Her eyes darted across the numbers. No, she whispered. No, this is fake. This can't be. Where did you get this money? I looked at all three of them. Calm. Certain. Bigger than the version of me they thought they could manipulate. Powerball, I said. The $60 million jackpot. Silence again. Pure, suffocating disbelief. Then the horror set in. Jamal leaned forward, panic all over his face. Wait. Hold on, Jonathan. Bro. Listen. We didn't mean. Things got confused. Let's just talk. I said quietly. Yesterday you told me to sleep in my car. Today you want to talk? Ashley tried again. Jonathan, we're family. No, I said. Family doesn't set traps. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't watch you drown to see if you'll stop struggling. Washington stood up. We have two options, he said. Option 1. We give this to the district attorney. Criminal charges. Wire fraud. Contract fraud. Possible jail time. Ashley let out a strangled gasp. My mother covered her mouth. Jamal whispered, "Oh God." Option 2. Washington continued, sliding 2 new contracts toward them. You sell your 2/3 of the house to Jonathan. For $20,000 total. Ashley's face twisted. That house is worth $700,000. 60 seconds. Washington said, checking his watch. Choose. They chose. Of course they did. They always chose themselves. They always chose the easiest path. They signed. They took the cheap settlement they offered me. They walked in thinking they were the hunters. They walked out knowing they were the prey. When the door shut behind them, the room felt quiet again. Clean, like a storm had passed and took all the rot with it. Washington gathered the signed contracts. It's done, he said. The house is yours. Fully. Cleanly. I nodded. Good. He looked at me for a moment longer. You did well, he said. Better than most people would. I learned from the best, I replied. From the people who taught me what betrayal looks like up close. He smiled a little. So what now? I stood, looking out at the city below, alive, loud, complicated. Now, I said, I build something better. And that was the truth. Not revenge. Not punishment. Just clarity. And a new beginning that had nothing to do with the people I left behind in that room. The funny thing about peace is that it doesn't arrive with fireworks. It comes quietly, like a soft breath after a long chokehold. That's what I felt the next morning when I drove across town to the West End, to a building most people never look at twice, the Harmony Senior Lofts. The sun was barely up, the streets still cool, the air calm in a way my life had never been. I parked and stepped out, holding a small white envelope in my hand. A real one this time, not part of a test. As I walked toward the building, I couldn't help thinking about the night I sat in my car outside, shaking from what I thought was despair. Back then I believed I had no family. No one. But that night, when I knocked on Miss Evelyn's door, she gave me something my own mother had never offered in my entire life. Unconditional help. No hesitation. No questions. No judgment. Just love. Pure and simple. And that mattered more than any number in a bank account. I buzzed her apartment, and she cracked her door open a second later like she had been standing behind it waiting for me. Jonathan, baby, what are you doing here this early? She asked, pulling her robe tighter around her. Her eyes were gentle, her voice warm in that way only older women who've lived through storms can sound. I held up the envelope. Miss Evelyn, I need to talk to you. She frowned, worried, and stepped aside to let me in. Her apartment was the same as always, tiny, clean, cozy, smelling like coffee and something sweet she must have baked last night. I sat on her small couch while she settled into the armchair across from me. You all right? She asked. I nodded. Yeah, better than all right. I handed her the envelope. She opened it slowly, her hands trembling a little, then pulled out the papers inside. Her eyes skimmed the first lines. She didn't speak. She didn't even breathe. Finally, she lowered the papers and stared at me. Jonathan, baby, what is this? I smiled, but it wasn't a proud smile. It was soft, quiet, the kind that comes from finally being free. It's your lease contract, I told her. Your new one. She blinked. My new, her voice faded. Jonathan, this says I owe $0. Zero. Rent, maintenance, everything. Everything, I said nodding. You don't ever have to worry about it again. Not one bill. Not for the rest of your life. She covered her mouth with both hands. Tears welled up instantly. Child, you didn't. I did, I said gently. I bought the building, Miss Evelyn. Every unit. Every hallway. All of it. And you're staying right here. In this apartment. Free. Forever. She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. Why would you do all this for me? I leaned forward. My voice was quiet, steady. Because when I knocked on your door with nothing, you offered me everything. You were the only family I had when I had no one. And family deserves to be protected. She started crying then. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just soft sobs. Like her heart was finally letting go of something heavy she'd been carrying alone for too many years. She reached for my hand, gripping it tight. Thank you, baby. Thank you. I squeezed back. There's more, I said. She wiped her tears with her sleeve. More? Yes. The unit next door is empty. I know, she sniffed. Nice young girl moved out last week. I nodded. I want you to pick who lives there. Someone who needs a place. Someone like me, like how I was that night. Someone who needs a hand instead of a door slammed in their face. Her eyes widened. Then a slow smile spread across her face. Oh, child, now that's real kindness. That's what your big mama used to call righteous work. I smiled too, because that was exactly the point. After an hour of talking and crying and laughing, I left her building and drove straight to the old house, the one that had started this entire war. Big Mama's house. Except now it looked nothing like the rotting, forgotten place it had been. Workers were on the porch replacing the columns. The smell of fresh wood and paint filled the air. When I stepped onto the new walkway, the contractor nodded at me. We'll have the inside ready next week, he said. Just like you asked. I looked at the house, its windows shining again, its walls strong for the first time in decades. It felt like seeing hope built from the ground up. I walked to the front yard where the soil was freshly turned and placed the wooden sign I had made into the ground. The Big Mama and Evelyn house, it read. A home for women who had been overlooked, underestimated, pushed aside, just like I had been. A place for second chances, for safety, for new beginnings. A place built from pain, but rooted in love. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. You're going to be lonely. All that money, and no family left. I stared at the words for a long moment. Then I looked at the house. I looked at the sign. I thought of Miss Evelyn crying in her little living room, holding the deed to her future. I thought of the girls who would soon live here, girls who had no one to fight for them. Until now. I felt something warm in my chest. Something honest. Something real. I typed nothing back. I simply deleted the message. Then I put my phone away and stepped up onto the new porch. Inside, I could hear the workers talking, laughing, building something stronger than the place that came before it. And for the first time in my entire life, I didn't feel alone. I felt free. I felt chosen. I felt like I had finally built the family I deserved. Not the one I was born into, but the one I created with my own hands and heart. And I walked inside. I figured my family would go quiet for a while, lick their wounds, maybe even pretend none of it ever happened. But people like them never disappear quietly. The very next week, right as I was leaving the new community office inside Big Mama and Evelyn house, my phone vibrated with a call from an unknown number. I knew exactly who it was before I picked up. The moment I said hello, I heard it, the shaking breath, the forced calm, the way a person sounds when everything they thought they controlled is slipping through their fingers. Jonathan, my mother said, her voice small, so small I barely recognized it. Can we talk? I stepped outside onto the porch and leaned against the railing. The sun was warm. Kids were playing a block away. Life was good. About what? I asked, keeping my tone flat. She swallowed hard. About us. About family. Baby, we didn't mean for things to go how they went. Her voice cracked. Your brother he's not doing well. I stared out at the street. He finally realized stealing isn't a career path? She let out a shaky breath. He's scared, Jonathan. He thinks you want revenge. He thinks you're going to ruin him. I don't have to ruin him, I said. He did that himself. Silence. Heavy. Dense. Then she spoke again, quieter. I need to see you. Please. And I'll be honest. If this had been a month earlier, I might have gone. I might have taken the blame, apologized, tried to make things right. But after everything, after the test, after the trap, after the way she looked at me across that dinner table like I was disposable? No, I'd already buried that version of myself. I'm busy, I said. She paused. Doing what? I looked back at the house behind me. Fresh paint, new windows, the hum of workers rebuilding something beautiful out of something broken. Building something that matters. Another silence. Then her voice changed, sharper, reaching for old power she used to have over me. You think money changes who you are? You think it makes you better than us? I shook my head, even though she couldn't see it. No, it just made it impossible to ignore who you always were. She inhaled sharply like the words hit her in the stomach. Jonathan, you're my son. And Miss Evelyn isn't. I asked. She didn't answer. You only call me family when you want something, I said calmly. When I needed $3,000, a tiny, tiny fraction of what I've given all of you my entire life. You laughed at me. You told me to figure it out. Well, I figured it out. I could hear her breathing hard, like she was pacing. You can't do this, she said. You can't cut us out. We're blood. Blood doesn't excuse how you treat people. Then what does? She demanded, the frustration boiling through. I answered without hesitation. Behavior. Another long silence. Then she spoke, soft again. So that's it. That's it, I said. I'm done being the backup plan. I'm done being the one you lean on and step on. I'm done begging for space at a table I helped build. I've built my own now. When she finally hung up, she didn't say goodbye. She just disappeared, a soft click ending 32 years of imbalance. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel sadness. I felt something better, release. Later that week, Miss Evelyn and I stood outside the old house as the final touches were made. The contractors had just put up the new sign, the Big Mama and Evelyn House, a home for new beginnings. She was holding a cup of sweet tea. I was eating a biscuit she insisted on packing for me. The sun was setting behind the houses, casting warm orange light across the street. "You did good, child," she murmured, watching the workers drill in the last screws. I shook my head. "We did good." She smiled. "I still don't understand why you chose me," she said softly. "Why you trusted me with all this." I turned toward her. "Because the night I lied to everyone else, you told me the truth. You told me family is the hand that pulls you up, not the one that pushes you down." She looked away fast, blinking back tears. "Well," she said, pretending to fan her face, "if you keep talking like that, I'm gonna cry again." "Cry," I said, laughing. "It's all right." She nudged me with her elbow. Smart mouth. That evening we hosted the first meeting in the new space. 3 young women sitting nervously at the long table, unsure why they'd been invited. All 3 had stories too familiar. Families who took advantage, partners who drained them, lives built on surviving instead of living. They didn't know what this place would become yet. They didn't know that we were going to teach them everything no one taught us: how to handle money, how to read contracts, how to protect themselves, how to walk into any room with the confidence of someone who knows their worth. They only knew this. Someone finally believed in them. Someone wanted them there. Someone was giving them a place to rise. And that someone was me. When the meeting ended and everyone left, I walked upstairs to the balcony of the penthouse, Miss Evelyn's new home. The city lights were flickering on in the distance. The air was calm. My phone buzzed again. Another message from my mother. I didn't open it. I didn't even read the preview. I just turned the phone face down on the railing. I didn't need to hear any more from people who only saw my value when they needed something from me. My life wasn't tied to them anymore. I had finally cut the chain. As I stood there looking at the glowing skyline, I realized something important, something I wished I'd learned sooner. You don't lose family when you walk away from people who mistreat you. You just lose the illusion that they were family to begin with. And what you gain is everything: freedom, peace, purpose, and the chance to build a life with people who lift you up instead of pulling you under. I breathed in deep. The night was quiet, warm, solid. "Welcome home," I whispered to myself. And for the first time in 32 years, I meant it. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below, and don't miss more thrilling stories like this. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload.